you through this. All right. This is a really great show coming right up. Don't turn that station because we've got Charles Thomas, ABC 7 News. He is the guy who does the political news for ABC 7. This is, okay, first Barack Obama, the first African-American president of the Harvard Law Review. Charles Thomas, the first African-American political news reporter on any major local network. The main thing here, folks, is we're not going to pull punches. If you want to know what Obama did and how he got there, you're going to find that out. If you want to find out about Lee Daniels Butler, if you want to find out about race, if you want to find out about state employee pensions, if you want to find out about Daley, why he really bailed, if you want to find out anything, don't turn this station or you're going to miss a really, 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 really good show. You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name, and politics is our game. Charles, would you get serious? We got to get serious now, okay? Stop screwing around. Look, if you're watching this show, you probably want to know, because it's September 17th, and Daley bailed. You might see this a few days later. You might even see it a week later. But you've all heard that Bill Daley said, "Oh, the enormity of it all. I suddenly realized to run for governor, it's a big deal." And guess what? I'm 65, and so for the next, he was worried he was going to win. And then for 5 or 9 years until he was 74. Charles, you're laughing. Of course not. Yeah. Charles is laughing because he thought it was such utter BS.
Yes,
you know
definitely.
Charles, well, why did Bill Daley bail?
Because he couldn't win.
That was it? He lied.
No, well,
Daley looked at everybody and all of you guys from the Chicago media, and he lied right to your face?
Well, he had to say something. I mean, but he realized
he could have just said, I couldn't win. Why couldn't he say that?
He could have, but that would sound kind of lame, wouldn't it? Because he just started the campaign like a month ago.
Well, then why? Well, then why didn't he keep going? You're supposed to be able to explain this stuff to us. You've been doing it for 6 years.
I mean, I think
you've been doing journalism for 40 years.
None of the politicians in Cook County, the Cook County Regular Democratic Organization, would not endorse him. He was going to at the time that he made his
it
swan
doesn't
song.
matter. That's
no,
outdated.
he was going to lose the state
dad.
Democratic Party endorsement.
It doesn't matter.
Pat Quinn has been endorsed by, I think it's 2/3 or 3/4 of the county chairman in Illinois, and so, Bill Daley had not opened not a single campaign office. Not one in Chicago, a purely dedicated campaign office.
He had like 6 months until the primary.
No, he
right?
doesn't. That isn't a lot of time. He had to organize the entire state. The other problem he
didn't know how to do. Why didn't he open an office?
Because he didn't have the money.
Yes, he said he raised $1 million.
But that's not enough to raise offices.
How much should he have raised? How much should he have raised by now?
Well, I don't know. But
why couldn't he raise money? If Daley
because
can't
I
raise
think
money?
people realized they would look at the internal polling that they do, and they would find out that he really didn't have the kind of voter support that I think he was hoping he would have, because people were so tired of Pat Quinn. But Pat Quinn is not benign. I mean, Pat Quinn's been out there working, and he's been making deals and talking to people. And Bill Daley was finding that he just simply wasn't having the impact that he wanted to have. That plus the Daley name downstate is absolutely toxic.
Why?
Because of older people remember, older Democrats, I should say, remember the iron fist that Richard J. Daley held over state Democratic politics.
And so but they didn't like the fact that Richard J. Daley, they still
The
remember
older
this guy,
voters.
the older guy.
The older voters
the guy
still
who became
remember
mayor
that.
in 1955
Right.
and left in 1976.
Yeah.
There are people alive who remember
people
this stuff.
alive. You were alive. You were alive when
1955?
Richard J. Daley was mayor.
Nah,
and you hear the stories from your parents and your grandparents, and then the younger Democrats, they thought of Bill Daley, as being this rich banker. This rich banker who led the country into the Great Recession.
They really thought he did that? He worked for Bill Clinton.
Well, younger Democrats, older Democrats.
He worked for Obama.
And then you have people right here in the metropolitan area who hear the Daley name disparaged almost daily, by Rahm Emanuel.
Oh, because
when he
of all,
talks
like,
about
the
the
parking
parking
meters,
and how the schools were left in such horrible shape.
And all the murders and all that stuff. That's all Richard M. Daley's
That's
fault?
not Richard M.
Oh.
But Richard M. has the parking meters,
Parking
the
problem, right.
privatization.
Privatization.
Anytime you want to drive your car to Indiana on the Skyway, you got to pay
That's your
$4.50.
fault. That's your fault.
Well, they're
I mean,
going to look. They're
that's
going
his
to think
fault. That's
Daley.
what I mean. Yeah,
they're going to
Daley's
think
fault.
Daley. I
Not
think
your
he just
fault.
had a really tough time.
And he didn't anticipate that. Even though
Well, he
he's
probably
part of the Daley family and he should know
Yeah, maybe he
politics,
didn't.
he just didn't anticipate
Maybe he
that.
didn't. Maybe he didn't anticipate
It was like
that.
a big revelation. It was an epiphany, so to
Well,
speak.
whatever. But I think he was going to have a really tough time beating Pat Quinn in a Democratic primary. And I think that is the reason that he didn't continue this race. I don't think it was that he was afraid of winning.
So it's just one big lie.
Well,
and you think politicians...
You called it that.
Well, what would you call it? You just don't be a,
don't use words like
don't be a
pejorative
wuss.
words like
don't
that.
be a wuss.
You know.
Said you wouldn't be a wuss.
Well, I told you also I wasn't going to get myself in any trouble here today.
So you
Jeffrey.
said he lied, but you just didn't use those words.
I didn't use those words.
He's such a wuss.
I think he needed. I
he's
think
a good
he
wuss,
needed.
but he's a
He
wuss.
needed an escape hatch, and he used this enormity thing to basically bail.
Enormity.
Yeah.
Sounds like a phallic symbol of some type.
Well, I'm not going to go there.
You don't want to go there.
Not going there.
Okay, so Bill, we love you, and we hope you'll come on the show because I have
But
to
if
believe
you look at Bill-
Look, it's somewhat believable. Charles, you're not
I thought
quite
I was
there
the
yet.
guest. I get to talk here.
Yeah, okay.
You know, I think that if you look at Bill Daley's resume, you can go anywhere in the country and you're not going to find a person with that kind of public service resume anywhere in the
fantastic.
country.
It's fantastic.
Any candidate. I mean, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
If you look at what this guy is on paper, I mean, come on.
But it doesn't impress people, is what
No,
you're saying.
I don't think it's that. I think the
Or
timing
the
was
baggage
horrible.
of the Daley
The
name,
baggage of the Daley name.
parking meter.
In Illinois.
The parking meter
You take that
stuff,
same
yeah.
resume to Kansas, and they go, "Whoa, this guy's got it going on." But
Yeah.
you take it to Illinois, and it's a problem. Particularly
Well,
now.
Kansas, the land of Dorothy and Oz and all that stuff. In Illinois, they get right down to it.
Yeah.
So the Democrats in Illinois love Pat Quinn and don't like Bill Daley.
You know, right now they got Pat Quinn. I mean, Pat Quinn's the governor, and I think Pat Quinn is a politician to be reckoned with because he knows how to play the game.
So, and who do the Republicans have? Let's see if we can get that up. The Republican candidates. Maybe we can get that graphic up.
You got a graphic?
Well, we don't really need a graphic.
I don't get to
Tell
see
us
the
about
graphic.
the four Republican candidates.
Well, you've got Dan Rutherford, who is the treasurer,
State
of Illinois
treasurer.
State treasurer. He is the only candidate among the four Republicans who's ever won a
statewide office. And Dan will
statewide
tell
office.
you that every minute.
Every
of the day.
every minute. Then you've
There
got,
we go. There's our graphic. Rauner, Dillard, Brady, and Rutherford.
See, I can't see that. I can't. You won't
Don't
let me see the
I
graphic.
just told you. I'm just helping you.
Yeah,
We're
well,
helping you.
but I think that's a bad order because I think that you want to talk about Dillard, who is
Okay.
the former
You
chief
wanna
of
start, You want to
staff.
start with Rutherford? or
We,
do you
we,
want-
we did Rutherford.
we did Rutherford.
He's the treasurer, and he's the only
Okay,
guy
so
who's
you
ever
start
won
with
statewide.
Rutherford. Okay. Then you want to go to Dillard?
Dillard, who used to be the chief of staff for Jim Edgar,
Well,
former Governor Jim Edgar.
You're mocking
No,
him.
I'm not. I'm saying
He
it the
sat
way
in
he
his chair
says
and
it.
he said that. Well,
He says
why
that's
are
the way
you
he
mocking
says
him?
it because
It's a big
because
deal,
Jim
isn't it?
Edgar is held in such high esteem
and he is,
in
isn't he?
Illinois. He's the
Isn't he?
only governor of late who hasn't gone
Gone
to
to
jail.
jail. But
Right.
seriously,
so he's Saint Jim,
But isn't that true?
Saint Jim Edgar.
He left office
Yes.
with like a 70% rating,
Yes,
popularity.
yes,
And it
yes.
still might even be that
and
now.
Kirk Dillard was his chief of staff, and that is why Kirk
He
Dillard
says-
tells everybody you should vote for him.
So
now,
you're continuing to mock
the
Kirk.
other guy is Bill Brady, Senator Bill Brady from Bloomington. He's run, what, 6 times?
No, 3 times.
3 times.
26, 2010, and now.
Yeah. And he's lost.
And he was the nominee in 2010.
The nominee in 2010.
26, he was
But
sort of the spoiler.
He only won
was
the
spoiler
nomination by
to
like
knock
200
out
votes, though.
Overweiss.
He only won
Right.
the nomination by 200 votes
Beating
over Dillard.
Right.
But he is
And
a
he
guy.
lost, and he didn't lose by much to Quinn.
Now there's a guy.
He didn't lose by much to Quinn.
There's a guy does not give up. He just doesn't
Well, that's
give up.
good.
He keeps coming back. I mean, unlike Bill Daley, this guy has perseverance. And I
That's
think
good.
that
Don't you think
is
that's
Bill
good?
Daley's, that is Bill Brady's stock and trade.
It's good, though, isn't it?
And the last guy
Okay.
rides a motorcycle,
Bruce Rauner.
Bruce Rauner.
From Winnetka, right over
Bruce
near
Rauner.
Wise, Winnetka.
He's got more money than I don't know.
You told me $700 million. Did you
Something
say?
like that. He has never really given us a full disclosure.
Well, where did you hear $700 million?
I have heard that from other Republicans. This guy's really rich. If you thought Andy McKenna, who ran for governor,
He's got more money.
They say this guy's got more money than
Should we
that.
drive over from Skokie to his house in Winnetka after the show
And just
get
sit
us
out front and just
absorb the wealth?
absorb
Bruce,
the wealth.
Charles Thomas and Jeff Berkowitz are absorbing the wealth, sitting in front of your house.
But
in
he is the
Winnetka.
quintessential outsider.
I used to live in Winnetka. Did you know that? I used to live
He is the guy who's never held public office, never run for public office. He doesn't need the money. He doesn't need to steal from us.
He's doing it because he loves the state and wants to give back.
He wants to give back, and I think that
And he wants the glory of being governor.
Well,
he wants
whatever.
the glory of
but
being
it's,
governor.
it's glory that comes with it, but
It's a headache.
he wants to
getting it.
fix
Okay.
Illinois, he says,
Okay.
and he has no motivation to steal anything. There's not.
Right.
There,
If you have $700 million, you don't need it.
Well,
Who needs
like
another
Rod
dollar? Yeah.
Blagojevich, well, this thing
He
is
needed
golden,
money to,
or whatever.
Rod needed money to buy a suit. Ronner's got enough suits. He doesn't.
Rod's
he
got
doesn't need
enough
another
suits,
suit.
exactly. So
All
that's
right.
that's the
So
feel.
that's the thumbnail. You've now given us the thumbnail.
I mean,
now
these are-
could
and you know the thing
who is-
about it-
Who's going to win the Republican primary?
I don't know. I can't
Give
tell
me
you
your
that.
best shot.
But I will say this: I think they have 4 guys who could be the governor of Illinois.
Who each could beat Pat Quinn? You're telling me?
I don't know about that. See, I think what's going to I think
that's
that-
an important
I
question,
think this
Charles.
election is going to be determined by one thing that will happen or not happen.
Okay.
If the pension problem is solved, is resolved, the $100 billion unfunded pension debt, if it's resolved, I think Pat Quinn's going to be very difficult to beat by a Republican. If it's not resolved, I think he is very beatable by a Republican. Okay. And the interesting thing about solving the pension debt problem is that it's got to be resolved not to the satisfaction of the House and the Senate. It has to be resolved to the satisfaction of Wall Street, the ratings agencies.
And how will we know
S&P,
if the ratings of Illinois
Moody's.
start going up? If they start upgrading the bond ratings of Illinois bonds, then we'll know it's solved. is
It's
what you're
solved,
saying.
yes. And I think
You
they'll
heard
make
it. You heard
statements.
it first
Well, I
here
mean,
from Charles.
I said
Charles,
it. I
Charles
said
knows
it.
it.
I said it.
There you
If this is solved to the satisfaction of Wall Street, Pat Quinn's going to be tough to beat. If it's not, see, they can come up with some kind of solution, and the Wall Street guys say, "Well, that's not
say
going to work."
thumbs down, it
Thumbs down. Pat's got a problem.
Okay.
The governor's got a problem, but it's got to be
Here's
solved.
something. Why doesn't Pat Quinn just bribe the rating agencies no matter what?
Well, that's the Chicago way.
Yeah, isn't that the way it works?
No,
doesn't it?
Pat Quinn
Or
has
Rahm
proven.
could do it. Rahm and Pat could get together and bribe.
I don't think there's anybody.
The guys, and then the city and the state would look good, and then they'd both get reelected.
Yeah, but I think that Pat Quinn, one thing that he has done is that he has brought some, at least from what we know, he's brought some ethics to this
Ethics?
government.
Come on.
I mean,
you
you
mean
know,
like those
is
deals
that-
he made with the labor unions in the last election so he could win?
Well,
You
come
know,
on. I mean, you
so
know,
that
he
gave
I'm
him
talking
something
about,
and they gave him money.
I don't
and
think
all
he's
that.
gone out and he's tried to sell a Senate seat or
Damn close.
$25,000.
Didn't he go out there
for-
and he talked
for
and
an
he brought
appointment,
the
pay to play? I don't think
brought
he's done
this
that
guy
stuff.
who knew the guys at the unions and remember that whole story and
Well, I mean,
worked
the
it all
unions,
out.
they make deals too. I mean, you make deals with the unions. I
Oh,
guess.
so it's okay if you make it. See, Rod, just a slight digression. Rod didn't know how to sell the seat like everybody else does. He didn't really try to do anything that nobody else does. He just didn't know how to do it in a way he wouldn't get caught. Don't you think that's true?
I couldn't tell you.
If Rod said, look, the President of the United States said,
I mean,
the
jury
President of the
made
United
the-
States
made the
through the union boss, you remember the story, passed the word initially and through Rahm to Rod that he wanted Valerie Jarrett to be appointed. Remember that? And you remember, and we know this, it's all on wiretap, et cetera. Okay, and testimony. And so the president says, I want Valerie Jarrett, and Rod said, what am I going to get by passing the word back through the union boss? And then the answer came, the president, you will have the president's gratitude and appreciation. Now, you and I know that means that Rod could have whatever he wanted. The president's just not going to say, we'll make you head
Well,
or change to win or
Jeff,
something.
I don't know.
You're not going to sign it?
I don't know this stuff.
Like, were you asleep during this trial?
I was
Did you go to
asleep.
the Rod
Yeah, I didn't go to the trial, but I read in on it. But I mean, I
didn't
know
all
all
this
this
stuff
all these
happen that I'm saying?
scenarios. I know what he was convicted of doing. He was convicted. I know what he was convicted.
The second trial. First trial, he was just convicted of lying to the FBI.
Well,
Nothing.
he was convicted. I
second
know what
trial.
he was convicted of in the
Oh,
second
so you're
trial.
going on the second trial?
Well, I have to.
You don't
what
have
else
an
can I go
opinion.
to?
This is the way
I mean,
we
just
do an
because this
objective
stuff comes
journalism.
up as testimony doesn't necessarily mean that.
No, but don't you think?
happened.
I know he was convicted.
Yeah, he was convicted.
But don't you think he was doing what the president wanted to
no,
do?
I don't think you can drag the president into this.
The president didn't want to have Valerie Jarrett there?
Was
The president didn't want to have Valerie Jarrett there?
Is the president guilty of something?
Yeah.
What?
He's guilty of attempting.
See, I'm not going there because I haven't seen him indicted.
No, he wasn't charged, yeah.
Right.
Well, who's going to indict the president? You think that guy, who was it, the U.S. attorney, had the balls to do that? Can we say that? Yeah. Do you think he had the balls? Here, you got that ball? Here, okay, I'll use this. Here's 2 balls. Do you think the U.S. attorney had the balls to
Jeff,
indict
come
the
on,
president? Can't we say that? We can't say.
I
Okay.
guess you can. I mean, but
Do you think he did? Do you think?
No,
do you think
I don't
the U.S.
think
attorney
that-
would do? If you were U.S. attorney, would you
I
have
think if the
indicted the president of the
president-
United States?
if
Even
the
if you thought,
president
even if you thought there
is-
was the fix
was-
was in,
is-
even if you thought the fix
if
was
there's
in,
probable cause for him to
you would have
committed a
indicted
crime, of
the
course.
president of the United States.
If in fact he
you have to
committed
go
a
to
crime.
Eric Holder, Eric Holder is appointed by the president. Patrick
Jeff, can
Fitzgerald,
we-
who is the
Jeff,
U.S. attorney, would
Jeff, I think it's now's the time to pivot, as they say. Pivot.
Okay.
And
Charles,
talk
this is
about-
your show. This is
you
your
got
show.
other stuff down here you want to talk
This
about.
is your show. Okay, this is your
Yeah.
show. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just here to facilitate things for you.
Yeah, right.
I'm a facilitator. This is the Charles Thomas Show. It's public affairs with Charles Thomas, okay? I'm going to be we're trading jobs tomorrow. I'm going to be doing your job over there at ABC7, right?
Yeah, you might be.
Could we trade
Once this show
paychecks
is over,
too?
you might be, man.
Could
Or
we trade
somebody might
paychecks
be.
too?
Right.
What do you make, Charles? Just serious. I mean, just give people an idea. What do you
Are you
make?
still with that Match.com outfit?
Absolutely.
What, really? How is it working
Ladies,
out for you?
it's working out well. If you want a date,
Have you
I'd
met-
get on
how many
Match.com.
dates have you had so far?
So many, Charles.
How
I can't
many
keep
would you
track.
think?
I just can't. You know, Charles, you don't want to interview me.
Well, no,
about
I do.
Match.
I do. I want to know about Match.com.
I can't believe
you
this
had an
guy
age
is
limit.
doing
You had an
this.
age limit you were telling me about
I
before.
can't
What
believe
is the
this.
age limit? Is
I
40,
think-
42, or
I
what?
think, yeah, the best range for me would be women 42 to 50, I think.
And what are you looking for in a young lady?
I think, well, I say this, if you go to my profile,
Uh-huh.
we want somebody who's attractive, who's smart, who's confident,
Yeah.
who has a good sense of humor, who's got a good smile, who's happy, with life.
Very
who's
patient too, right? You want somebody who's patient.
Somebody who knows a little politics,
Gotta be-
Charles.
yeah.
Somebody likes to watch public
She's
affairs.
got to be a registered voter,
She has to like public affairs, don't
but
you
she's
think?
got to be a registered voter.
Charles,
is that
let's
important?
get serious, okay?
What? We
let's
are.
get
I'm
back.
serious as-
Folks, excuse that little digression.
That
and
was
little
called a
fantasy
pivot.
world.
That's what you call it.
It's a pivot. Pivot.
See, they didn't want me to look at this camera, right?
Don't look there.
Okay, but that's what.
Look, I was telling Charles before the show, I told Barack, we have 3 cameras here. And I said, Charles, you can look at the camera right there. Don't look at the other 2, or you look distorted. And I said the same thing to Barack Obama when he was doing one of his first 6 shows. And he turned around and he looked distorted, and he went on to become president of the United States.
Yeah.
So he must know something.
So what about me? What do you think I'm going to do?
So let me ask
maybe
you about Barack.
get Ron Major's job.
So
or
a
something
little
like
segue there. We call this a segue into Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Because in 2004, I know you were just trailing around with Andy Shaw. You weren't quite the political reporter then,
no,
but
not
you were covering stuff. Yeah. And you remember Barack was running for the U.S. Senate, first in the Democratic primary, then in the general election.
Yeah.
So he's running in 2002 to 2004 in the Democratic primary.
Well, 2004.
Well, the primary is in 2004, but
Can I tell you a story? It's really interesting.
you may do whatever you like. This is
It's
your show.
it's
This is the Charles Thomas
it's
Show.
August-
Public Affairs with Charles Thomas.
Okay, it's August 2004.
Yes.
And this is a week before Barack Obama gives that speech in Boston that thrust him onto the national stage. So he was running against Jack Ryan, who was a Republican at the time, who has another story. But Jack Ryan said something about something, and so Andy Shaw at the time was political reporter, but he was off.
What's the date roughly here?
August 2004.
Wait, so it's after the primary. Oh, right around the time between
The
when
convention.
when Ryan said I have a problem, but they hadn't yet
No,
appointed his
that hadn't
replacement.
even come up yet. That hadn't come up
August 2004. No,
that hadn't
you're getting
come up
the
yet.
dates confused. Because
that hadn't come up
It
yet.
happened in June 2004.
yet. What? The Ryan
Primaries-
problem?
The Ryan problem happens in
Well,
June 25th,
probably,
2004.
but whatever. But I have to call
Okay.
Barack Obama because we have to have we need to do an interview with Barack Obama. So I
Sometime in
I
2004.
call his headquarters, and he answered the phone.
You used to do it for me too.
Yeah.
You used
okay.
to do it for me. Okay.
So I say
You make it sound like
I said Senator
only black guys can have him answer
Senator
the phone.
Obama,
He answered
we
for
need
me
to
as a
come.
white guy.
We need to come and talk to you about this. And he says, no problem. But can you meet me at my house?
What was it you wanted to talk to him about?
I can't remember.
Something.
But he
wants
says,
you to meet you at his house.
Meet me at my house. I can't do it here
In
at
Kenwood?
the office. Yeah, it was in no, it was in Hyde Park.
That was when he lived in Hyde Park.
So we
before he had the
go
big
up to the house,
Yeah,
and,
right.
and it's a row of 3 flats.
Nice little house.
Yeah, 3-story.
Michelle's there.
He lived in the middle
Michelle
flat.
was baking cookies or something.
Middle flat in the end building.
Okay.
So we get there, and the photographer and myself, we said, wow, this is a very, middle class, working class kind of neighborhood for a guy who's running for U.S. Senate.
Yeah.
Wow. So we're sitting there in the car waiting, and we see him walking down the street, as Barack Obama walks, and he has on khakis.
He's got a nice gait to him. He has
Khakis
a nice
and a
gait.
short sleeve shirt. And
Right.
all of a sudden we hear this racket at the house at the end of the block where he told us he lived.
All right. Okay.
And this very tall woman comes out with 2 small children.
Michelle.
Yeah.
With Sasha.
One
and
of them
Malia.
is she's virtually dragging.
Malia,
and
maybe.
she's got this scowl on her face. And she comes out and she goes down the stairs to the sidewalk and she walks really fast. One kid's almost being dragged. And she hands him to him. and the photographer looked at me and I looked at him and said, "Oh, I've been here before. This is you don't have child care."
We've both been here.
Yeah.
Yes.
You don't have child care.
Yeah, and you don't want to keep your wife waiting.
Yeah, and your
when you don't
wife
have
is
child-
waiting.
Charles and I
right?
have both been there
I've been
before.
there,
Yeah, I've been there.
So
I've been there.
and we sort of, we did the interview when we did the interview outside, and we just shot him from us, but he had these 2 little kids at the bottom, and then we went on about our business, and I just kind of like forgot that. I remembered the moment, but I forgot it. Then 4 years and 3 months later, he's standing in Grant Park,
He just been
having been elected
president.
leader of the free world. I'm
Right.
going,
November.
and I go back to that moment,
You were just
and I
saying-
say, my gosh,
This all happened in 4 years.
4 years and 3 months from having sweat and child care
Care
to being
to be
leader of the
president.
free world. That's a great thing about America, man. Come on.
Is this a great country or what?
Is it a great country or what?
See,
Come on.
We're like, we can do this pantomime, almost like we can do it together. Is this
Right.
a great
Is this a
country
great country or what?
All right, that's the show, folks. There's really, it can't get any better from here. So I think we're just going to go home. Charles got to be home early, okay?
Absolutely.
So we've got another 10 minutes or so, Charles. So
Oh, really? Okay. That's why you don't let me look back there.
We got another 10 minutes there, so you're going to have to stick it out.
Okay.
All right. So I was saying, I was going to ask before we got to that great. It's a good story.
Thank you. I thought it was.
In 2004, he's running in the Democratic primary. People think Dan Hines might win. They think Blair Hull might win. Blair Hull's spending $39 million. Barack's got $5 million. Hines is thought to be, this big name, and he's like a machine guy, and he'd have the machine out there for him and all that. And Barack sweeps it, 55% to like Hines 24 second, and Hull's like nowhere, okay? And so people said, because it wasn't just the tremendous black vote that was out there for Barack, there was this tremendous white vote.
Well, sure, in
So
the
he
general election.
in the primary, he transcended race in the Democratic primary for the U.S. Senate in 2004. If he hadn't, there's no way he could have beat these white guys 55 to 23. If he just got out there and got like that 90% of that black vote and a spattering of the white vote, it would have been like he wins like 28-25. No. If you win 55-23, and that's what it was, he transcended race. There were blacks who were supporting him in mass, obviously, but there were large numbers of whites. And that's what he said to me when he was on this show, and we talked to how he was going to do this. He said, we're going to do well in every socio-economic graphic, or whatever, demographic, okay? Did I get that right? Is that the Barack Obama?
I mean, that's the story of his presidency.
Well, that's the question. So he transcended race, and he transcended politics in 2004, and then he ran in 2008, and he beat Hillary Clinton in the Democratic primary, which was tough. He beat John Edwards. It turned out it wasn't as tough as we thought. But so in 2008, running in the Democratic primary for President of the United States, is he still transcending race and politics, Barack Obama?
Your question?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think he did it more so in 2012.
Okay, so from 2008 to 2012, as President of the United States, you're saying he was still transcending race
Yes,
and
absolutely.
politics.
Yeah.
And so remember that thing about the, the guy who, was it Gates or who, that little beer summit they had to have?
Sure.
And he said this guy was doing something wrong, and he kind of jumped the gun.
This is a police guy.
Yeah. He said like the guy was ganging up on him. It was about race, and Was he still transcending race, or was he at that point? Because
Well,
Barack would never get out front on race before.
Well, why can't he address the race issue? Why not? I mean,
Was he
he can't do that? Why can't he do that? Why
can.
Why couldn't George Bush do that? Why can't Bill Clinton do that?
That was the
Why
point,
can't Ronald Reagan do that? Why can't any president do that? And I don't think he's done that.
Trayvon Martin.
Well, sure.
He says, Barack Obama says this, what was it, 4 or 5 months ago? Maybe it's 2 months ago.
Right.
Trayvon Martin could have been me 35 years ago. So Barack Obama, 52 as president or so, 35 years ago, he would have been 17.
Right.
Barack Obama would have been down on the ground pounding some other white guy and really pounding him, and then the white guy pulls out a gun and kills him. But Barack Obama could have been smashing the guy, and if the guy didn't have a gun,
What are you
trying
to say here, man?
I don't think Barack
I mean,
Obama could have been
you're
Trayvon
trying
Martin.
to.
I don't think he could have been Trayvon
I mean,
Martin.
you're saying that you're telling us what I guess Mr. Zimmerman testified. Trayvon Martin, unfortunately, is not there.
That's what the jury found. That's what the jury found.
But Trayvon Martin was not there to tell his side of the story.
But if it was, no,
I mean,
we know Trayvon Martin was beating
what is
the
your
guy.
point, though? What is your point?
Because Barack Obama wasn't the kind of guy ever, as far as I know, who would be pounding.
How do you know that?
Because I know. I had him on for 6
What
shows.
does it? You had him on, but so what? How do you know that?
You don't think I know the guy?
You don't know if he were attacked. You don't know what he. What
I
do?
know remember, everybody said does he have sharp elbows? Could he be mean? Could he be? They didn't even know. They didn't even know if he could respond.
What is your point, Mr. Berkowitz? What is your point?
My point is, it's a bunch of BS.
What is?
That Trayvon Martin could have been.
You want to talk
me
about the
35
Trayvon
years.
Martin case with
No,
me?
I
I
just-
can't help you on that.
No, I'm just saying. I wonder if he still transcends race and politics in the way he did in 2004.
Well, when you
and
say
2008.
transcend race, you don't mean ignore race. Just
No,
because you
transcend.
you
know what
transcend. In
you're-
other words,
you're
people
above race. You're
went
above
beyond
race.
that
Right,
when
above.
considering
Okay.
beyond race,
Yeah.
when considering whether or not this person should be elected president of the United States. That's a
Absolutely.
fact. The majority of the voters in this country
No.
look beyond
He did
race
better.
to elect him.
He did better across races in 2004 in the state of Illinois in the Democratic primary than he did in 2008 running for president, and certainly in 2012.
So what is the point? What is our point here?
He has been more racial as president of the United States than he ever was as a candidate or as a U.S. senator.
Well, he wasn't a U.S. senator very long.
Well, 4 years.
No, he was not.
He was elected in 2004, Charles.
But he was running for president by 2007 and was
He didn't
virtually
retire.
not.
He was still a U.S. senator. He was still
Yeah,
taking.
but come on.
He was still
But come
taking
on.
votes.
Let's be serious.
Okay.
Let's be serious.
But Lee Daniels, The Butler.
What about
was a movie.
Yes, I saw the movie.
You saw the movie.
Yes.
I saw the movie. We had very different reactions.
What was
is
your-
it? Is it because I'm a white guy and you're a black
I
guy?
don't know that. Well, what was your reaction to the film that was different
we
than mine?
talked about it. We
no, we
talked
didn't.
about it. Come
I don't
on.
remember the conversation, Jeff.
I said the problem with this movie, and nobody said this, is the guy who wrote it from history, from thinking, from experience. He didn't understand the joy. There was no joy in that movie. There was no joy to the civil rights movement. There was no joy to getting things
okay,
right.
I remember the conversation
And
now.
you said, Jeff, there was no joy.
There
I
was
said-
no
I said
joy
there
in the
was.
civil
There was
rights
the joy.
movement.
There was
No,
joy
come
in the anti-war movement. There was
Joy in the anti-war
because
movement?
the anti-war movement won.
Well, let's talk about the
Charles.
civil rights movement.
Okay, but they were.
But
they,
there was
no, but they
not
were very
joy.
close together for a while.
There was not a feeling of joy. There was a feeling of fear. I can remember in 1968, after Dr. King was murdered,
Yeah.
I can remember I was living in Missouri,
Yeah.
and I can
Can
remember
too.
my father
Yeah.
getting his shotgun and sitting by the door.
Oh, yeah.
And that was fear.
If you were in Chicago and you weren't at the
I
time,
remember
there
looking.
were blacks. There were blacks running down the Midway
Yeah,
Plaza.
you were there, right?
Yeah.
I remember.
And it doesn't even matter, and I read history.
watching.
I read history.
I remember being scared to death, seeing pictures of Emmett Till. That was not joy. I can remember.
There were some bad
I can
times.
remember seeing the dogs in Selma.
I have to interrupt.
I can remember.
We're running out of time.
Okay, but let me tell
just-
you this
You'll have
before
a
I go.
minute. You'll have a minute. I just want to say we're going to continue speaking to this has been one of the best shows I've ever had. Thank you so much, Charles Thomas.
Right.
All right, finish it up. We got about.
But I can remember
Got
the
a minute.
fear.
Give us a big kick.
It was fear. I can remember the dogs. I can remember thinking.